What up, YouTube? I am back with my second ever BookTube contribution, and so for today's book, I am going to be reviewing Fimi Sile Forever by Nana Ikpo. Before I get into the book, I just want to introduce my roommate's puppy, Milo. I just finished reading this book and it completely blew my mind. It was amazing. It was such great writing, such great storytelling. I will just read you the general summary of it really quickly. Ola Wale and Olu Wole are dreadlocked Yoruba lawyers, minority human rights activists fighting for a better Nigeria. Bisexual and closeted, Ola Wale has spent his adult life protecting and defending his charismatic, more evidently homosexual twin. But when the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act becomes law, they, their family, and the women who love them are caught in a savage spotlight that threatens to wreck all of their lives. In the midst of this, Wole and Wale must deal with an estranged convict father whose unexpected reappearance brings dark and troubling family secrets to light. Fimi Sile Forever celebrates the enduring power of love, desire, faith, patriotism, and human rights struggle in the face of political oppression and religious prejudice in Nigeria today. It extends the literary conversation begun by Jude Dibia and continued by Chinelo Okparanta. So one of the things I loved about this book is that it was written for an African audience. You can tell that from everything from the references to referencing certain authors to the references of West African food or South African food and what have you. And I just love writing like this that just reaffirms itself as the center. So it's written for an African audience and that is the center. And if you want to learn about this, you have to do the work to dive in and to join and maybe research like, wait, who's this author that they reference? What's this food that they're talking about? As Americans specifically, we are so used to being catered to. From what I understand, America has the largest exports in the entire world of like media and other things too. And so we are so used to everything being centered around us as if we're the center of the universe. So a book like this written for an African audience, it is very refreshing for me to read, to be quite frank. And also the thing about being Nigerian and even other parts of the world too, is that, like I said, America has the largest exports. So to be from another place, another country, means that you are actually exposed to a lot of American references and American things and American culture, but you have your own culture as well. So maybe you might reference a couple American things here and there because it's so ubiquitous, it's so in your face, but you have your own stuff going on. You have your own culture, you have your own foods, your own languages, your own authors. And so I love that. It felt like I was doing a deep dive into Nigeria. So it was very cool. Another way that is expressed is through these two twins. They grew up not knowing each other. They grew up not even knowing the other existed. And it wasn't until they were like, I think around the age of like 10-ish or maybe like preteen, something like that, until they were introduced to one another and they're identical twins. They lived in separate parts of Nigeria, had very different lives. And even when they were introduced, it wasn't like this explanation like you see in The Parent Trap. It was just like, oh yeah, that's your identical twin brother. All right, well, you have to go to school now. And I find certain aspects of the way that dynamic exists to be so true to what I understand about many Nigerian families and parts of Nigerian culture, obviously not all, but it just was something about it that just felt so African and felt so Nigerian. It's just a different sentiment. It's a different way of expressing or explaining. It's a different dynamic at home a lot of times. It's very common from my understanding for you not to necessarily be raised by your mom and your biological mom and your biological father. You might be raised by an uncle or an aunt or a cousin or a friend of the family or a grandparent, and then maybe you meet your biological family when you're like 15 and it's like, oh hey, hi, hello, hi mom, love you. So it's just a very different dynamic, and I felt like it was just so true to everything I know. And there was something really nice about the mix of Yoruba, Pidgin, and English, and also having a variety of characters from various economic, socio-political standpoints. So the main characters, they work in the field of law and academia, and so that is a very particular kind of dynamic and circle that you will be exposed to and be around. But then even going to other places, maybe going to nightclubs or being a part of organizations or groups, you will have people who speak in a variety of ways. Maybe some people would classify that as like colloquial or slang. And it's so cool having a wide array of characters because there's so much freedom. There's so much freedom in slang. There's so much freedom in having characters from a variety of socioeconomic backgrounds who don't care about being respectable, who don't care about those things. That's not a huge priority to them. It's more so about being real and getting what they need, their objectives. So I think that provided so much richness to the story, and it was really cool to see these three different ways of speaking. So you have, like I said, you have English, you have Pidgin, you have Yoruba. Having those three different modalities of speaking, it was just so much color. Really, it was really, really rich. And so obviously this book talks about being bisexual as a man in Nigeria. And initially when I first came upon this book, I was kind of worried. I wasn't sure what was going to be in it. And I thought a lot about like the shame and the violence. And you know, that is in there. However, there's also a lot of fun to it as well. And there's also a lot of mystery and adventure. And there's something about being a man or boy or masculine that there's like a certain wildness to it. I don't know if that's the right word I want to use, but there's a certain kind of exuberance and even mischievousness. And I feel like the book really captured that as far as like being a bisexual man. It was about the shame, it touched on the shame and the fear, but it also touched on the exuberance and the freedom and the wildness and the fun. And it was really exciting to read. So I was gifted this book at Christmas time by a college friend, and to be honest, it is the best gift that I've ever received. What makes it so great is that it is so specific to me. Whenever I describe this book to my friends, I'm like, oh yeah, it follows a Nigerian bisexual male writer. They're like, is this about your life? Is this you? And I'm like, no, it's not me. But yeah, this is the best gift that I've ever received. This book helped heal me and really helped me really reconcile my Nigerianness with my bisexuality, because so much of it was a mystery to me. So much of LGBT peoples in Nigeria was such a huge mystery to me. Like I said in my last video, I was told by my parents and by my elders that LGBT people don't exist, and that is an American concept. That's an American thing. That's a lie. And as you can see, like, this book, it is from the perspective of a Nigerian bisexual man, and I just wasn't sure how actual LGBT people who are Nigerian live and how they make it, how they survive. And this book answered a lot of those questions for me. Obviously, this is just one book and it's not everybody's experience. It helped answer a lot of those questions and put a lot of the sort of like anxieties and fears that I had sort of like to rest to a degree, you know, that there are people on the ground who are suffering, especially if they're not privileged, and there are also people fighting too. So I just want to read to you a couple passages that really impacted me. This passage is from page 197. Our police escorts were outside, and their presence created a somber mood, as all present knew that these same police had been making arrests in other parts of the country. The police officer who we call our friend today is the same policeman in whose hands the anti-gay law catches fire, and whose brutality homophobia fuels. Yet the crime that attracts homophobia is not homosexuality, but vulnerability. It is poverty, effeminacy, outspokenness. In the face of dangerously hot homophobic Nigeria, only the protected, wealthy, ruthlessly self-serving, and politically connected could ride, win, laugh, and lead normal, if not ideal lives, as people of means have done in the past, do today, and will continue to do in the future. For homophobia is innately cowardly, but expelling it demands audacity, and to be audacious and hope to survive demands at least the facade of being shielded, even if one is not actually so. This passage is from 263. I could not think. He was melting around me, pelvis to pelvis, sweat sleek all over our bodies. We had stopped being men, being like trees in the wind. Here there was no need to be firm or to control anyone. There was no need to be anything. As the seconds expanded, time stopping every now and then, my thrusts gained momentum. His grip became firmer around my nape. All I could feel was complete and out of my body. Being man, woman, tree, and wind, being everything there was to be. Shion laughed. my core had awoken. And so there was just something really, really special about the way the author talked about bisexuality and talked about it as feeling like you're caught between two worlds. You're caught between maybe tradition and what a man should be, should do, be a father, be a husband to a woman, and this other world of what it is to be a gay man in Nigeria. And I just thought that the way the author summarized that was just really poignant and really special. And this author didn't shy away from the ugly parts of what it means to be a bisexual man, which can sometimes mean that you're looking down your nose on gay men. And that's what I really like about this book, that the author shows you some of the beautiful parts of being bisexual. It shows you some of the ugly parts of being bisexual. It shows some of the parts of being bisexual where you are discriminated against in multiple ways. But it also shows the fact that, yeah, some bisexual men definitely look down upon gay men and pity them and feel a sense of superiority, like, oh, well, I still like women. You don't even like women. I really appreciated that because it is wrong, obviously, but it showed that the main character was a human being who doesn't all just have shiny, beautiful parts, right? He's not just this hero, right? But yeah, he's flawed too. And speaking of flaws, a huge flaw with the character is that feminism is just not a priority for him. It's just not on his radar. And it left me wondering whether this was just like an accurate portrayal of a Nigerian man, or whether this was a symptom of the author's own bias and the author's own blind spots that seeped into the work, or whether it was both, really. It left me thinking like, like this is probably very accurate, but this might also be the fact that the author doesn't prioritize feminism and gender violence, gender equity, things like that. So the main character, Wale, loves Tega, who is his fiance, and they have a really, really flowery, lovely relationship, but there is a bit of a wedge that comes between them. That wedge is really the fact that Wale feels like he can't be honest about his bisexuality with Tega, and for him that makes him feel unable to be really intimate with her and for them to really fit. That's not the case for every bisexual man, but for some bisexual men, they need to know that their partner, whether it's a man or a woman or a non-binary person, is cool with them being bisexual, is supportive, finds that attractive, finds it sexy. And we get to a part in the novel where Tega finds out and she's not okay with that, and she actually calls him the F word. She calls him a slur. And that moment was really huge in the novel because Tega had been heavily involved in human rights work, specifically for LGBT people in Nigeria. And so for her to use that word, not only on her fiance, but with her work that she does for these organizations, it lands a huge blow. And it just kind of reminded me that, you know, a lot of allies, self-proclaimed allies, or a lot of people who say, I don't have any problem with gay people, I don't have any problem with bisexual people. That's what a lot of them might say. That's the face they might present to the public. But if one of their children happens to be LGBT, or if their spouse happens to be, you know, bisexual, you see a very different side of people. Tega was sent pictures of Wale of when he was much younger and was intimate with a male, and he was outed. Like, it was completely out of his control, the way she found out. And she found out by seeing him in bed with another man. That is quite a way to find out that, you know, your fiance is bisexual. But at the same time, I still think a lot of what I said does still stand, but I would not want anybody to find out in that way. You know, that was really horrible. Being outed in Nigeria is something that people dangle over your head as a way to blackmail you. And it's like, oh, well, I have these pictures of you, or I know this stuff about you, and if you don't do what I say, I will send these pictures to your girlfriend or to your family or to your job. So something that I thought was super unique about this book was the fact that the twins, Wale and Wole, had a gay father. So when they finally reconciled with their biological father, they finally got the story, they finally got the scoop that he is gay. And I thought that that was such a cool, strong choice because, as I said, in the early part of their lives, they were raised separately. They didn't know one another existed. And then they reconciled, then they started being around one another, started having a relationship with their mom, started having a relationship with their father, who was in prison at the time. And then eventually the family secret sort of came out about how they came to be and who their father is and who their father was and all of that stuff. And the father acts as like sort of a guide with these two twins who are becoming more and more comfortable with their sexuality. His life as an older gay man in Nigeria sort of becomes like a model of sorts for them. You know, maybe not the prison part, right? And maybe not the other stuff, the sexual violence. But in terms of safety, he guides both of the twins to feeling more comfortable with their sexuality in a way that only a father can. So the main character, Wale, his brother, Wole, is mistaken for him and is shot. And there are a couple pages where, as the reader, you're not sure as to whether Wole is alive or not. And like those pages were just like, it was like the not knowing. And then there was a point where I was like, oh nah, like he's dead. I know he's dead. And then the reveal that he's still alive. He's recovering, he's still hurt, but he's still alive. It was just like, and the relief I felt after reading that was like huge. And that device of having an identical twin who you learned from and learns from you, but then you didn't know one another existed until a certain age, and then finally forming a bond and becoming inseparable and having to guide one another and look after one another, and then almost losing them, and that really being a real wake-up call, like, oh now, like if we stay here we're going to be killed. And that was enough to like propel them out of Nigeria and to South Africa to live with their dad and his partner. And I thought that the ending for Wale to not have any romantic prospects as a bisexual man was so incredibly strong, that allowed for so much possibility, and it was so amazing because throughout the book, Wale had been gearing up to get married to Tega, but Wale had also been tussling with the idea of like, wait, am I polyamorous? Am I going to have to be with a man too? And then he had exes from his past that he was kind of sort of in contact with here and there. For most of the way, the author had us believing that, okay, well, if it doesn't work out with Tega, then it's going to work out with Shion, or it's going to work out with another character. And the choice to make him be single at the end and to heal and to be hopeful and to focus on other things. It was such a strong choice, and it was really, really unforgettable and really impactful. And so as you can tell, I love this book and it was so important to me, and I would highly recommend it. And I'm completely over the moon about this book. I love it so much. Thank you so much for tuning into my YouTube channel. Please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think about this review, and I will see you next time. Peace.